We're continuing to follow breaking news out of the Middle East. Right now, President Trump announced the U.S. has attacked 3 nuclear sites in Iran. In a post on Truth Social, he called the attack successful and says the planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. Trump went on to write, quote, "Now is the time for peace." Mr. Trump says he will address the nation from the White House at 10 p.m. Eastern time, which is just about 30 minutes from now. Sources tell CBS News the U.S. reached out to Iran today and said these strikes are the only ones that the U.S. has planned. For more on this breaking news story, let's bring in CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd on the phone with us. Samantha.
Good evening.
Tell us what the significance is of an attack like this by the U.S. in the Middle East.
Well, at this juncture, the primary concern for the president and his national security team are the safety and security of Americans in the region, around the world, and that includes here in the homeland. When I was at the Department of Homeland Security, we were deeply aware of Iran's capabilities to inspire and direct attacks against U.S. assets. That's through their vast network of proxies, including individuals here in the United States. So right now, law enforcement and intelligence professionals are on heightened alert for any indication of reprisal attacks against Americans here in the homeland or U.S. assets overseas. Of course, that includes military installations in the Middle East, as well as American tourists and those living abroad as well. The significance of the attacks is, in the first instance, going to come down to whether the attacks were successful, whether these attacks actually destroyed the ability for Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan to function. If bunker buster bombs were used, I think it is quite likely the attacks were successful. So right now, again, the president and his national security team should be reviewing any threats to Americans as a result of these strikes and trying to ascertain whether they were successful.
On Truth Social, the president did indicate that the strikes were successful. That's what he said. We'll hear more from him once again in less than 30 minutes. But what kind of response, we can go into this a little bit deeper, are we expecting from Iran, and how quickly could we see this actually take place?
Well, the United States has already taken precautionary measures to try to mitigate any kind of reprisal. That includes dispersing U.S. military assets in the region so that they're not all concentrated at particular bases. It also includes moving additional offensive assets to the region in the event that Iran tries to act and to try to deter Iran from taking more aggressive action. We've moved an additional carrier strike group and fighter squadron, among other assets. U.S. bases are certainly at risk, as well as the hundreds of thousands of Americans living in the region. So we could expect Iran to unleash missiles at U.S. bases in the Middle East. Iran has a significant network of proxies all around the world that it could activate against Americans. And Iran also has very advanced cyber capabilities that it could leverage if it so chooses.
Sam, we know that plans have been set in place to protect or replace Iranian. I'm looking right now. We do have the map up of the 3 areas that were hit. Let's go into that first. Let's talk about the areas that where the U.S. struck in terms of the 3 sites that they believe have nuclear capabilities.
Sure. So they are Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. The first 2 are uranium enrichment centers. Fordow, the site there, is very deep inside of a mountain. Natanz was struck earlier this month by Israel. And again, these are 2 uranium enrichment centers. The third site, Isfahan, is where we believe the Iranians are keeping most of its highly enriched uranium. So if these attacks were successful, the United States would have destroyed Iran's ability to both enrich uranium and have destroyed a significant amount of its almost bomb-grade material.
And how badly have they been hit, do we know for sure? Is there any indication in terms of how close they are to populated areas and what's happened in that region as a whole?
Well, we don't yet know how successful these attacks were, but again, if the bunker buster bomb known as the massive ordnance penetrator was used, I do think that there is a strong chance that they were successful. These sites are located not directly within a major city. Isfahan actually is a very populated center, actually. So we don't yet know if there were civilian casualties. Certainly individuals working at these facilities would have been impacted by these massive bombs, but we have to wait for the battleground assessment.
What do we know about plans to protect or replace Iranian leaders? What do we know about those talks?
Well, we understand that the Israelis may have had the capability to assassinate the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who ultimately is a key decision maker on whether to break out to a nuclear weapon and who will ultimately give a signal as to whether, for example, Iranian proxies should be activated. President Trump reportedly told Prime Minister Netanyahu not to assassinate Khamenei. Later, President Trump himself said that the United States had the capability to assassinate Khamenei. We don't know if that's true, but he did make that statement. So there are concerns that the United States and Israel are focused on regime change, although President Trump has indicated that he's focused on the nuclear program and not on regime change itself, but time will tell.
Israel obviously has been key in all of this. Has Israel issued any type of official response to these U.S. strikes?
Israel will, and Prime Minister Netanyahu will likely be very pleased that President Trump decided to take this action. Dating back to my time in the Obama administration, Prime Minister Netanyahu has asked U.S. presidents to take exactly this type of action. So certainly Israel will issue perhaps celebratory, if not highly positive statements about this military action by the United States.
Sam, what can you tell us about the payload actually used in this attack, in these strikes?
This particular bomb that we keep talking about, the massive ordnance penetrator from MOP, is a 30,000-pound bomb and is like anything else in the world. Various countries have asked us for it throughout the history of this bomb, but we've kept it for ourselves, and it was really the one munition that had the capability to strike deep within the mountain facility at Fordo.
This decision came after Israel was attacking Iran, right? And what was Israel's aim during its attacks on Iran?
Israel was focused on the same thing sensibly as President Trump, which is degrading Iran's ability to obtain a nuclear weapon. There were very deep concerns that Iran was closer to a nuclear weapon than ever before, based upon stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Israel did expand its strikes beyond just nuclear facilities, however, and killing nuclear scientists. Israel attacked military installations as well as some energy infrastructure. So Israel, at least, was more focused on putting pressure on Iran more broadly than the United States. President Trump kept his military strikes to nuclear facilities.
On Truth Social, the president said that this is, I'm quoting here, this is a historic moment for the United States of America, Israel, and the world. Iran must now agree to end this war. What do you take of that comment from the president?
I take it that President Trump and Israel are focused on using military pressure to push Iran to the negotiating table to give up any remaining aspect of its nuclear program. So the strategy here is maximum pressure, military pressure, to try to get Iran to the negotiating table to give up any remnant of its nuclear program.
Samantha Vinograd, thank you so much. CBS News national security contributor for us to give us some more insight. Right now, we have a retired General H.R. McMaster on the phone joining us as we speak. General, good evening.
Hey, good evening, Krista. Good to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to ask you first, what is your take on what has transpired, this shocking breaking news that has transpired this evening?
Well, it's not that shocking, I don't think, because of Iran's intransigence. President Trump decided to give them one more chance, and of course, you had the Iranian foreign minister meet with European foreign ministers yesterday, and the response was kind of bellicose and just said, "Hey, we're not even going to talk until the attacks from Israel stop." So I think that's really may have been the last straw for President Trump.
You know about strikes like this. Tell us what transpired in getting this attack completed and how America got this done?
Well, it's extraordinarily complex, and I'll tell you, I just have so much respect and gratitude for servicemen and women who pulled this off. And so it's orchestrated by the United States Central Command. But as you know, there are elements of strategic command because it involves the B-1 and B-2 bombers that were employing the larger munitions. But it is not just an air operation, it's also a maritime operation and a land operation, because on land you have to operate a lot of the air defense weapon systems. You're also orchestrating a lot of the collection on Iranian capabilities. But the maritime dimension is very significant as well. I think what we'll see is that many of our submarines were involved in firing cruise missiles at these multiple targets, because to hit Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz simultaneously, I think there would have been aerial strike packages as well as maritime strikes.
And something like this, the concern can be for civilians in the region, in the area, because we've seen so many civilians, civilian casualties, we should say, in the Middle East over these past several months. What can you tell us about that area in which these strikes have unfolded?
Well, in Fordo, it's pretty remote, so I think the chances of civilian casualties are very low, and it's also very low chances of any kind of radiological leakage, which you have to be concerned about. But in Isfahan and Natanz, those are closer to population centers. But what our military does is goes through a very sophisticated process of determining, the chances of collateral damage or damage or harm or death of innocents. And the munitions that you use are tailored to not only accomplishing the objective of the strike, but also minimizing civilian casualties.
Retired General H.R. McMaster, thank you so much for giving us that insight. We do appreciate it so much. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, great to be with you.